every piece of available evidence increasingly is that Republicans recognize that there is plenty of substance to criticize in terms of what happened in Benghazi. There are a lot of unanswered questions. We've said this on the show for the last week, but they're not really centered on Susan Rice, who had nothing to do with securing that compound in Benghazi. It had nothing to do with ignoring...
There are unanswered questions about Benghazi, by the way, and I also think that her talking...
Wait, did you say there are not?
There are not.
Okay, so why didn't they provide the security that the ambassador was requesting before his death? Why
the level of security that existed in Benghazi was the level of security that the ambassador wanted. You read Bobby Worth's piece in the New York Times Magazine about Chris Stevens and about hands-on diplomacy. I got a dog in this hunt. My son's a diplomat who has been deployed in dangerous places. He knew Chris Stevens. Everybody who I talked to in the State Department, I talked to a lot of people, believed that the talking points were accurate. It was a spontaneous demonstration by extremists. They saw that there was no security. They came back with mortars.
You just said there's no security there, so there's not a question. There's not a question why there's no security in a place that Chris Stevens knew was dangerous, that he had said was dangerous.
Chris Stevens was the kind of diplomat who wanted a minimum of security so that the American diplomats could be accessible to the people. That's the way he lived his life.
You were saying there are no questions out there remaining about security?
Yeah, there is a big question. The question is, why are John McCain and Lindsey Graham, continuing this ridiculous argument that was a political issue during the campaign?
Well, we agree that it's a ridiculous argument about Susan Rice. It's not a ridiculous argument about our first ambassador being killed in what is in effect a war zone, yet the first time since 1979. You don't think there's a question to be asked?
No, well, yeah, there is a question to be asked, but not the one that you're asking. The question is...
So all's fine. Nothing to see here.
No. There's a big question about how do we do hands-on diplomacy where our diplomats are in the streets with the people in an era of terrorism. There are some, like Chris Stevens, who erred on the side of low security. There are other places, if you've been out there, where the embassies are fortresses and the American diplomats are removed from the people. This is a major policy question.
So, Joe,
it's a serious question.
So, Joe, all reports that Chris Stevens had written that he needed more security are false reports?
I don't know that those reports exist. I mean, there was some controversy about the level of security
at the embassy
that you needed at the embassy in Tripoli.
And they had.
But the fact is that Chris Stevens lived his life in the streets.
I think it's the embassy versus the consulate and the security questions there that keep getting mixed up in the argument.
Joe, Mika, I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten from diplomats since I wrote about this last week who say, you're absolutely right.
But the question with regard to Susan Rice would be this. Who hung her out to dry? Who allowed her to say basically the same thing for a period of nearly 2 weeks? Did no one, not General Petraeus, not anyone in the intelligence community, pick up the phone?
The talking points were accurate.
For 2 weeks?
They were absolutely accurate.
Were they really?
They were. It was a spontaneous demonstration by extremists.
By Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, no, not by Al-Qaeda, by these militant...
So was Al-Qaeda involved in this attack or not?
Anybody can call themselves Al-Qaeda. The militias...
No. Was Al-Qaeda involved in this attack or not?
No, it was not.
Was not, really? Because that's a surprise to General Petraeus, who said they knew immediately that it was a terror attack and that Al-Qaeda was involved.
Salafists were involved.
You keep going back to Salafists, and that's great.
Salafists are militant extremists. Al-Qaeda was an organization organized by Osama bin Laden.
So you're saying Al-Qaeda was not involved?
You got to be accurate about these things.
Well, don't tell me I have to be accurate about these things. I didn't testify in front of the Intelligence Committee last week. General Petraeus did, and he said they knew immediately that this was a terror attack and that Al-Qaeda was involved. And you're sitting here telling me that there's nothing to see here, move along, and that's fine with me. We would not be talking about this right now except for the fact, Joe, that you said there is nothing to see here. What you're saying is not the same thing that General Petraeus said in front of the Intel community last week.
I think Petraeus was absolutely accurate. You have a local militia, that is an Al-Qaeda wannabe. They go out into the streets as soon as they get the excuse, which is this film. They get to the consulate. They see that there is no security there. They come back with mortars. This is essentially what Susan Rice was
So is
said
Al-Qaeda
in talking.
involved or not? I'm confused.
Define Al-Qaeda.
I'm only defining what General Petraeus said was Al-Qaeda. Are we now going to define what the meaning of is? We're looking at
you got to in this case because
Joe, General Petraeus said last week, testifying that Al-Qaeda was involved. So I don't know what he meant, but I would guess Al-Qaeda means Al-Qaeda.
A group a local street gang that one would have...
Guys that were hanging out, rolling dice against the wall, smoking cigarettes, singing doo-wop hits, suddenly saw a chance to go.
A local street gang that wants to be affiliated with the official Crips pulled this off.
Okay.
They admire Al-Qaeda. So is Al-Qaeda involved? As an example,
General Petraeus says so.
As an example, Al-Qaeda is involved because these are people who admire Al-Qaeda.
Okay.
But did Al-Qaeda direct this? No.
Well, I admire the Beatles, but when I play music, I'm not the Beatles.
You could be the fifth Beatle, like Murray the K.
Murray the K?
You're like the Pete Best of television.
Okay, let's
because the whole world's eyes are on Flushing.
Yeah, absolutely right.
John Hyland, you have anything to say here?
Well, I think it's she very purposefully on those Sunday shows was asked whether it was an act of terror. She would not use that language very purposefully on five different Sunday shows. The administration was asked for 9 days to whether it was an act of terror. The administration, Jay Carney, the president, declined to call it an act of terror.
After 9 days,
he did. Oh my God, Joe!
And 9 days later, they declared it was an act of terror.
We have to ask a more. We have a more important question to ask here, John. Has the president invited you to go play golf?
No.
Because you are just gobbling up
the only
talking
president,
points.
The only
like
president who ever invited me to go play golf was Bill Clinton, and I declined because I don't play golf with people I cover.
Okay, very good.
That's very admirable.
I guess so.
Joe Klein, thank you very much.
Joe, this has been
illuminating.
illuminating.
Having you on.
I hope so. I mean, really, it's time that we cleared this thing up because there's a lot less here than meets the eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So who's the police officer in Simpsons? Quimby was the mayor.